Hello, this is Max. Today, the story is about a woman who wanted to seek revenge on a family for her husband's tragedy. You can subscribe to the channel after watching. It helps us a lot in realizing the content. A pregnant woman's idyllic life is shattered when she experiences a horrifying incident with her obstetrician. Despite her fight for justice being rewarded, she fails to anticipate the impending nightmare brewing at the Bartle's peaceful residence. A hooded man knocks on their door, connected to the mysterious father Michael and his daughter Emma Claire. The pregnant wife, Claire, oblivious to the knocking, is startled when she sees a stranger by the glass window. Her husband, Michael, quickly comes to her aid and chases after the man. Eventually, they invite the hooded man, who introduces himself as Solomon from the Better Day Society, an organization employing mentally challenged individuals. The family warmly welcomes Solomon, as he is there to fix their fans. Solomon and Emma form an instant connection due to their similar mental ages. The next day, Claire visits a maternity clinic for a prenatal checkup. The nurse, suspicious of the obstetrician, Dr. Mott, tries to reassure Claire as it is her first appointment with him. During the examination, Claire becomes uncomfortable with the doctor's touch and is surprised when he removes his gloves for an unnecessary procedure. Distressed, Claire leaves the clinic and suffers an asthma attack due to stress. She confides in her husband, Michael, about the incident but doubts if she is overreacting. He assures her of her feelings and encourages her to report it to the police, promising his full support. Claire eventually musters the courage to file a report. Days later, news spreads that Dr. Mott's malicious actions have been exposed, with 4 more women stepping forward as witnesses. Overwhelmed with guilt, Dr. Mott did the unthinkable. His name appears in the obituary the next day, and Michael brings the newspaper to Claire, who copes with the situation by focusing on making plans for herself. Meanwhile, Mrs. Mott, the widow of Dr. Mott, discovers that all their assets are frozen due to the legal case, and her husband's death means there won't be any insurance payout. While she is allowed to stay in their house until she gives birth, she is advised to plan for her future immediately. However, she struggles to even stand up and collapses after a few steps. Mrs. Mott is rushed to the hospital, desperately hoping to save her baby. Tragically, the baby doesn't survive, and she undergoes a procedure to have her uterus removed. In contrast, the Bartle family enjoys a day of happiness together. To make matters worse, Mrs. Mott sees the news about her husband and discovers that Claire was the first woman to come forward against him. 6 months later, the Bartle family welcomes a new baby, and their bond with Solomon grows stronger, especially with Emma. Michael reminds Claire that she shouldn't shoulder everything alone, just as she did with Emma, and suggests they hire a nanny. Claire sends her daughter to school but forgets to give her a jacket. She tries to stop the school bus but fails, only to be helped by a woman who deliberately stops the bus. Claire thanks her and learns that the woman, Peyton Flanders, is looking for the Bartle residence for a nanny position. Claire apologizes for forgetting their appointment, but Peyton clarifies that there was no appointment or agency involved. Peyton explains that the family she used to work for left, and as she overhears nannies talking in the park, she discovers that the Bartles are in need of a nanny, which surprises Claire. They have a conversation over a cup of tea, during which Peyton shares her past of losing her baby and husband in a similar time frame and having her uterus removed, conveniently omitting the fact that Dr. Mott was her husband. Peyton reveals that she chose to be a nanny because she believes being a mother is the greatest thing. Claire's infant cries, so Peyton offers to meet the baby, but a call from Solomon interrupts the interaction. Peyton approaches the baby, Joe, but Claire and Solomon return, and the homeowner introduces the two. Before leaving, Peyton's white sleeve gets smeared with Solomon's paint, causing her to become upset. Solomon apologizes, but Peyton pretends to be okay, unaware that Solomon can sense her true feelings. Peyton gazes at Claire and her baby with envy but quickly changes her facial expression and praises Joe's beauty. She then bids farewell but is invited to dinner by Claire to meet the family. During the dinner, Peyton witnesses the Bartle family's loving dynamics and stares bitterly when she sees the couple share a kiss. After dinner, Claire puts Joe in the bassinet, and Peyton notices Claire's earring drop on the floor. Peyton discreetly picks it up, and the couple excuses themselves to decide whether to hire Peyton as the nanny. Peyton pretends that the dropped earring is almost near Joe's mouth, making the couple more grateful for her assistance. The next day, Peyton arrives at the Bartle residence as their in-house nanny, and Solomon observes her suspiciously at dawn. Peyton's alarm rings, and she sneaks into Joe's room to cover the baby monitor and breastfeeds him. One evening, as Claire prepares for a double date, she shares with Peyton that the dress she is wearing was a special gift from her husband. When Claire turns around, Peyton eyes the perfume oil, and later, when Claire discovers a stain on the dress, Peyton volunteers to get cleaning materials. Michael arrives with his friend Marty, and Marty becomes attracted to Peyton. However, his wife, Marlene, arrives and notices his smile and Peyton's beauty. Marlene introduces herself and comments on Peyton's attractiveness. Marlene also mentions the phrase, "The hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world," implying that a beautiful woman can be a threat. Peyton asks her to repeat it, and Marlene clarifies that it's the name of the perfume Claire is wearing, avoiding any suspicion. While Claire wears an old-fashioned floral dress due to the accident with her husband's gift, Peyton takes the opportunity to be alone with Emma and gather information. She learns about a bully named Roth at school and how Claire tried but failed to solve the issue. During dinner, Marlene warns Claire not to let a beautiful woman into her house, implying potential danger. Peyton subtly adds shade by commenting on Solomon's interactions with Emma, insinuating impropriety. The next day, Peyton asks Claire if there are any batteries for the intercom in Solomon's cart, and Claire volunteers to find them while Peyton carries Joe. Unfortunately, Claire finds Emma's hidden undergarment in the cart, and when Solomon appears behind her, she attacks him and walks away with Emma. Peyton gives him a meaningful glare, and Solomon realizes it was a setup. He is immediately dismissed and taken away by the organization. Emma expresses her anger toward her mother for dismissing Solomon and seeks comfort from Peyton. When Claire has a moment alone with Peyton, she confesses her guilt about Emma's anger and feeling responsible for not protecting her. Peyton half-heartedly reassures her while preparing for the surprise party. Claire asks to have dinner with Michael and privately expresses concerns about the party not going well. However, Peyton insists that everything will be fine. Later, Marlene visits the Bartle residence and takes Joe. Another guest, helps unload some items from Marlene's car and notices Peyton's purse. The baby cries, and Claire takes him back, but he doesn't calm down. Peyton steps in and soothes Joe, causing Marlene to feel uneasy. Marlene also notices a wind chime, a gift from Peyton to the Bartles. Later, Claire and Peyton have a conversation in private, where Peyton subtly navigates the discussion for the personal between Claire and Michael, Claire's unattractiveness, and Marlene being Michael's first love. Peyton mentions that Michael is not around despite knowing the truth, prompting Claire to call him at work. Meanwhile, Marlene and Michael finalize the guest list for the party and share a smoke. Marlene mentions her missing lighter and takes Marty's lighter instead. She inquires about Peyton and realizes that the Bartle family heavily relies on her. Michael becomes more distant and detached, which raises Claire's suspicions. When Michael returns home, Claire confronts him, pointing out that he wasn't at work and has been smoking. Late at night, Peyton intentionally makes noise in the kitchen, prompting Michael to investigate with a baseball bat. He encounters Peyton in a nightgown, and although he tries to leave, she prolongs the conversation, trying to get close to him. Eventually, Michael departs and holds Claire's hand tightly. The next day, Claire brings some of Michael's clothes for dry cleaning. However, the owner discovers a lighter in the pocket and realizes it belongs to Marlene. The owner informs Marlene, who experiences an asthma attack and cries. Emma encourages Marlene to go into the living room, but Claire instructs Emma to go upstairs. Marlene throws the lighter at Michael, accusing him of infidelity. Michael tries to explain, but Claire yells at him, believing he had an affair. Michael suggests that everyone join the surprise party, despite the strained atmosphere. However, Marlene walks out after the argument. Claire and Michael have a heartfelt conversation, and Michael suggests going on a trip together. Claire insists on leaving Peyton behind, explaining that bad things seem to happen when Peyton is around. Eventually, they decide to have a vacation as a family. Unbeknownst to them, Peyton eavesdrops through the baby monitor. The following day, while everyone is still asleep, Peyton sabotages the greenhouse. Meanwhile, Marlene receives files for a new house she is supposed to handle in her real estate firm. She comes across Dr. Mott's house and notices a wind chime similar to the one Peyton gifted to the Bartles. Curious, Marlene leaves to investigate and discovers Peyton's true identity as Mrs. Mott. She immediately calls Claire, but Peyton answers the call, pretending to be Claire's colleague. Peyton tells Claire about the call but convinces her to ignore it. Marlene drives urgently to the Bartle residence, where she encounters only Peyton. Marlene reveals Peyton's true identity and demands to see Claire. Peyton tells Marlene that Claire is in the greenhouse. Marlene opens the greenhouse and triggers a trap set by Peyton, causing the glass roof to shatter. Peyton locks the glass door, empties Claire's inhalers, and takes Joe for a stroll. When Claire arrives and enters the greenhouse, she discovers Marlene's lifeless body. Claire experiences an asthma attack and realizes she doesn't have any inhalers. She calls 911 but collapses on the veranda. Peyton rolls her eyes upon hearing the sirens. Paramedics revive Claire, and Peyton pretends to be surprised upon their arrival. However, the police notice the greenhouse accident. Claire regains consciousness in the hospital but remains intubated. Michael reassures her and then returns home. Solomon watches over Claire anxiously in the pouring rain. Upon arriving home, Michael locks the greenhouse, and Peyton approaches him from outside. They try to dry out the sloughs together, and Peyton's trying to get close to Michael. However, Michael declares that there is only one woman for him, and Peyton leaves. A few days later, Claire is discharged from the hospital, and Emma notices Solomon following them home. Peyton welcomes Claire as if she were the lady of the house, showcasing how she manages Michael's schedule and wearing the bracelet from her husband. When Claire enters the nursery, she discovers that Peyton has redecorated it. Claire comments that someone should have consulted her. While going through her laundry basket, Claire finds a note from her colleague regarding Marlene's call. The next day, she visits Marlene's office to inquire about the day of the accident. She finds the behavior of the employees unusual and sees the listing for Dr. Mott's house. Claire heads to the address and discovers the truth upon seeing the nursery, which is identical to theirs. She returns home and confronts Peyton, causing a physical altercation. Claire reveals Peyton's true identity and demands that she leave. Peyton tries to gain sympathy from Michael, claiming they have a relationship, but the family immediately kicks her out. Peyton mistakenly mentions that she'll take her baby, but the Bartles don't give her a chance to pack or retrieve the key. Claire realizes that the house has been rigged, so they call the police and pack their things to stay in a hotel. Unfortunately, the police are not in a hurry to arrive due to the absence of an emergency. Meanwhile, Michael hears music from Peyton's room and discovers the broken small glass window. He turns off the alarm, thinking no one is there. However, as he climbs the stairs, Peyton hits him with a shovel. Claire hears the commotion and investigates. She finds Michael injured and warns her that Peyton is in the house. Claire calls 911, but Peyton attacks her with the shovel. Despite evading a few strikes, Claire is eventually hit on the head. In the chaos, Emma locks herself and Joe in a room while Peyton escapes. Peyton searches for the children and discovers Joe's cries, not realizing they're coming from the baby monitor. She then hears another cry and follows it to the attic, where she finds Solomon protecting the kids. Solomon takes Joe away from her, and Claire arrives with a knife. A confrontation ensues, and Claire manages to overpower Peyton, pushing her out of the window. Police sirens are heard, and Claire entrusts Solomon with Joe as they go to find Michael. They find Michael, and Solomon is overjoyed to see them safe. If you are interested in such films, please proceed to the next video on the screen, and also share your thoughts about this film in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe. Goodbye.